Valogix founders have been specializing in inventory planning and optimization since 1988. That is all we do. So we have a laser-sharp focus on providing powerful planning solutions that are easy to use. And we always balance the ease of use with the solution's features, because we find that if a solution is complex or difficult to use, people have a tendency not to use it. We have been working with SAP since early 2004. We're a global gold-level partner. We have customers in 41 countries and continuing to grow. And from an end-user perspective, I think one of the things that most importantly is we have maintained a certified integration into SAP Business One since 2005. So you can be assured we're meeting all of SAP's requirements for integrating and interfacing with SAP Business One. There's been one thing that's been consistent with our solutions over the years, and that's the ability to help organizations improve their cash flow. And I know that's a very bold statement. You may hear that from solution partners frequently, but hopefully by the end of today's short session, you'll have a sense of how Valogix may enable you as a Business One user to save a tremendous amount of time when it comes to inventory planning, but perhaps more importantly, reduce or optimize your inventory levels so that you can keep them as low as possible while enabling you to meet your customers' demands. Why consider a solution now? You know, the economy is still very uncertain. One thing that has occurred over the last couple of years is that the customers have become more demanding than ever. They're always looking for the best price, discounts, or shopping around. Energy costs are unstable, so it's leading to uncertainty in pricing and cost. There's several other bullets here from Kiplinger and the National Federation of Independent Businesses. You know, the bottom line is that the economy really is uncertain at the moment, and business managers have recognized that. They're cautious about it. So it's really kind of hard to tell which direction it's going to be going. So what if you could uncover an untapped line of credit in your internal funding? What if you could identify where inventory is at risk of surplus or being obsolete and act on it today? What if you could increase sales through better inventory availability or work more efficiently and smarter in the process? And what if you could benefit from a return on investment that's measured in weeks, not years? And perhaps most importantly, what if you could be ready for the changes in customer demand regardless of which direction they go? You know, if demand picks up, if you can be ready for that and react to that quickly, you'll be in great shape to take advantage of that. Conversely, if things continue to be uncertain and demand falls off, again, you need to be able to react quickly. And that's essentially what Valogix does. It helps to manage a very tough balancing act by enabling users to keep their inventory costs as low as possible while being able to meet their customers' demands at a desired service level. Some of the common challenges that we encounter as we're working with SAP Business One users, and actually users in almost all businesses, the being able to recognize and react to variability in demand is a continual challenge. If you have long lead times and are constantly adding new items to your mix, it can become incredibly complex and difficult to determine how much to order and when to order it and where to stock it if you don't have the appropriate tools. And without those tools, you can result in critical stock-out situations that result in lost sales, while at the other end of the spectrum, perhaps having excess and inactive inventory sitting on your shelves. So a lot of this really stems from a lack of ability to easily forecast and a lack of ability to turn those forecasts into the appropriate stocking levels. And these are challenges that Valogix helps to address by helping to automate the inventory planning process. The application certainly cannot replace the unique domain expertise and knowledge that your users have, but what the solution does do is pull very powerful planning information together and give the users a starting point that lets them focus on managing exceptions rather than requiring them to go through lengthy reports to determine what requires action. So in other words, having the information at your fingertips helps reduce the amount of time. It lets the user focus on unique events, perhaps the large unexpected order that you received yesterday, or perhaps the supplier that's not delivering on time. Those are areas where having these capabilities can really provide very powerful and value-added solutions to businesses. You'll see when we get into the software that it has been designed to be very easy to use and lets the user focus on managing the exceptions. It is true multi-echelon planning, meaning you can plan to bring items into a master warehouse and then redistribute them to branch locations or perhaps even customer locations if you have to, if you have customers who require you to provide them with vendor-managed inventory or consignment inventory. One of the key differences between Valogix planning solutions and many other solutions that are really focused on forecasting alone is the ability to optimize the stocking quantities. While the forecast is very important and it's a great starting point, it is just that, a starting point. The user must then take that forecast and translate it into the stocking levels that they want to maintain to be able to meet the upcoming demand. And that's what Valogix does. So on this chart, we have two different examples, very distinct examples of historical demand patterns from two different items. The item on the left, very random demand. Some months very high, other months very low or perhaps zero demand. One of the challenges with an item like this is the forecast is a great starting point, and here there's enough data for the application to automatically determine that an upward trend is occurring and build that into the forecast. But the forecast alone won't ensure that you can meet the next unexpected peak in demand. So what Valogix does begins by analyzing or considering an item's lead time. In this example, for ease of illustration, it's 15 days. But if you were importing items from overseas, that could easily be 90 to 120 days, 150 days, or even more. The concept works the same. The application also enables the user to determine how frequently they would ideally like to place replenishment orders. Again, in this example, it's twice a month or every 15 days. So the combination of the lead time and the order frequency create the planning horizon. The application continually looks at the forecast over the planning horizon and enables the user to set a desired service level or fill rate. So statistically speaking, what confidence level do you want to have of being able to meet the upcoming demand with inventory that's sitting on your shelf? And in this example, this is a very critical item. The service level has been set relatively high, 99%. Using all of this information, Valogix Planner will automatically calculate a stocking quantity. So in this example, the stocking quantity is 158. That includes 110 to meet the forecast, plus an additional 48 in safety stock because there's so much variability in demand for this item. And this stocking quantity represents what should be either on hand or on order to safely meet the upcoming demand. And this stocking quantity is also recalculated by the software for every item at every location every day. If you look at the example on the right, much more predictable demand, resulting in the exact same forecast. If we use all of the same planning parameters, same service level, the net result here is a stocking quantity that's much lower. In the first example, the stocking quantity was 158. Here it's 119, and the reason is much less safety stock is required to be able to achieve the same 99% service level. So this is what we mean by optimization. This is at the heart of what the application is doing, and again, it's continually doing this analysis, so this stocking quantities are always remaining in sync with your changing business requirements. And part of what enables us to do that is we are doing some very powerful statistics behind the scenes, and part of that is an exchange curve. So if you remember statistics and the bell curve, we're going out on the tail of that curve, depending on where you set the confidence or the service level to set the target, the stocking quantity. Obviously, the higher you go on this exchange curve, the greater the stocking quantity is required. And then one final slide before getting into the software itself is just to show our integration and an overview of the process flow. So Valogix does have a separate database, but that's very seamless to the end user. This data synchronization occurs automatically, and this data synchronization, this process is what has been certified by SAP, so you can be assured we're always in sync with Business One's SAP's requirements. Valogix begins the planning process by analyzing up to 48 months of historical demand, looking for patterns so that it can automatically select the best fit forecasting technique for each item at each location if you have multiple locations. The first test we do is looking for seasonal patterns. If it is seasonal, it selects a seasonal forecasting algorithm. If it's not, it then looks to see if it's high-moving, slow-moving, random. It's also evaluating whether it's trending up or trending down, and it's building all of that into the automated forecast. Now, the user has full control over the forecast. You can modify the forecast as desired, but once the forecast has been set, then the application goes through that optimization process that I talked about on the 2 previous slides to set the stocking quantity. Once the stocking quantity has been established, it then provides some strategic visibility to show where you might have excess and inactive stock. And it also analyzes the inventory that's sitting on the shelf and provides visibility as to how long it is anticipated to last. And then any items that are short, the application will automatically suggest the appropriate replenishments. And it presents them for easy review and editing and approval, and then once approved, it's sent back to Business One. And it's looking at things such as purchase orders. If you have multiple warehouses and you're redistributing inventory within your network, it can automatically suggest transfer requests as well as production orders. And all of that, again, is presented for easy review, editing, and approval. And then once approved, it seamlessly creates the appropriate documents using the Business One logic. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the software, provide a brief introduction and overview. And hopefully you can now see SAP Business One. I'm assuming all of you are familiar with Business One since you're existing users. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a sample item. And you'll notice on the item master data, Valogix does add some user-defined fields to help gain. You have some input here to parameters around the planning. But most importantly, down here in the lower right, there's a planning details button. And when I click on this, I can drill into the Valogix inventory planning details. And on the history and forecast tab, you get immediate visibility into up to 48 months of historical demand. So here's the historical demand for this item, the sample item at Warehouse 1. And one of the reasons I selected this particular item, it has a seasonal pattern to it. You'll notice the demand for March, April, and May is much higher than January and February. And then it tapers off in the summer months. And then there's another peak in September and October. Well, Valogix automatically recognizes that pattern, selects a seasonal forecasting algorithm, and then automatically creates this forecast that you see down here. And this forecast, the gold highlights the first month of the forecast, so it's easy to see where it's starting. And the forecast picks up both the seasonal patterns as well as recent trends, and there's been a slight downward trend occurring on this particular item. So all of that's built in automatically. The user has, as I mentioned, you have ability to edit the forecast should you desire to do so. So you can come in here and change the forecast for any given month. You also have the ability to modify history. So in an example where you perhaps received a very large customer order that was, you were happy to receive that order, but you don't necessarily want to plan for that moving forward, you have the ability to come in and modify the history as well. So you can account for that and normalize the history. Once the forecast has been established, then the application begins the planning process that we discussed. It analyzes the item's lead time and order frequency to set the planning horizon. This example, it's looking at 120 days. It then looks at the forecast over a planning horizon. In this example, it's 1,645, forecasting 1,645 over the next 120 days. It then considers the desired service level. Here it's been set relatively high, 99%. And using all that information, it automatically calculates this stocking quantity. So this is the number that has been calculated and is recalculated every day automatically. Now, once the stocking quantity has been established, the application then looks to see what is in stock. It adds what's on order. It then subtracts any past due commitments to the customer, considers those as back ordered. If you have firm commitments from today forward that exceed the forecast, the amount that exceeds the forecast would show as excess committed. The stocking quantity is what we're targeting to have either on hand or on order. And using all that information, it then determines whether a replenishment is required or not. And in this case, a replenishment is required. So we've spent a little bit of time here very deep in the details so I can explain the process that it's using to determine whether a replenishment is required or not. In practice, once the user has Valogix implemented and is comfortable with the results, they'll probably spend most of the time at a more tactical perspective. And so I'm going to step back now and kind of view this through the eyes or a day in the life. So I'm responsible for planning. I come in the morning. I open up the business one and go to the Valogix planning and optimization folder, pull up the replenishment plan, and as soon as I open the replenishment plan, I get immediate visibility to every item that requires replenishment at every location. You can see here this is covering multiple warehouses, and it's also covering multiple replenishment actions. You can see most of these here are currently listed. We're going to buy them. We purchase them, so a purchase order would be generated. You can see here are some where transfers are being recommended, so we'll automatically suggest transfers and create the appropriate transfer orders. And you can also then get visibility to any production or work orders that need to be issued as well. So again, the application's making the appropriate recommendation, both replenishment method as well as recommended quantities for every item at every location. And we can, coming in here, we can see there's 78 line items. So now I kind of need to, move this into a logical manner. Today, I want to plan for my supplier Far East Imports. So to do that, I can simply click here on the filter, select the vendor supplier, choose Far East Imports, filter, and literally within seconds of being in the application, I can see the replenishment requirements for Far East Imports. There's a total of 13 line items, a total quantity of just under 1,100 items. Total value is $348,000. This is demo data, but $348,000. And if you're maintaining weight and volume for the items in Business One, you can see the total weight and the total volume, or cube, in case you want to fill shipping containers or trucks or meet some other requirements. So you get visibility to all of those. You can also see, for demo purposes here, you can see that you can set at the supplier level minimum. So here, this supplier has a minimum. I need to order at least 500 items. Or I get free freight if I place an order of at least $15,000. Or I may want to target the weight, to fill out a shipping container. As I approve these items, you'll notice as I approve these items, you can see how well you're doing in meeting that particular requirements. Selecting and building out the order could be as simple as hitting select, selecting all. If I was targeting the value, the free freight, I've clearly met that, so I could go ahead and issue this order right now. I could go ahead and hit submit, and it would create the purchase order. Now, reality, this is real money. Things are occurring that may not be evident in the data, so this is where the user role is very, very important here, and you have the ability to quickly come in and analyze, review the items before placing the recommended replenishment. So I'd like to focus on this sample item that we were looking at. And the application is suggesting a replenishment of 521. Or if I want to see some of the details behind that, how are we getting to that? I can very quickly pull up the Planning Details tab here, go back to that history and forecast if desired. So you can get back to that immediately. You can also, we can see here we have items on order, and I think that this one actually has some back ordered as well. You can see there's some committed as well. If you want to see some details about that, you can pull up the inventory flow, and this is a very powerful tool. This gives you a time-phased view of the beginning balance and then any open supply or demand documents and their impact on that. So here we're starting with 630. Here's a sales order that was due September 15th for a quantity of 650. So that's actually creating a shortage. You can also see, though, that same day a purchase order was due in. So again, this is demo data. It's past due here, but you can see purchase orders for a quantity of 200. So that would have satisfied that demand. So this can be a very powerful tool that lets you very quickly focus in, see visibility to all open supply, all open demand, as well as considering the forecast in here. Another view you can get into this, if you have multiple locations, you can very quickly pull up a view here where you can see the history at this location and the balances across your network. So you can very quickly see where you may have, perhaps have more stock than required to do a transfer, perhaps. So again, the user gets very quick and easy visibility. They can build out the order, very quickly fill it, and go ahead and let's create this order. So I'm going to submit it, and this will create a purchase order within Business One. And you actually get acknowledgement that the purchase order has been created. All of the items that were approved have been removed from the replenishment plan. So you could go on to, perhaps plan for another supplier if desired to do so, or perhaps plan for transfers or production orders. All of that's built in, and so the user can very quickly perform their planning. Let's take a quick look at the purchase order. Again, at this point right now, it is standard Business One functionality, so I'll just go back to the purchase order. And in this case, this particular order, this is one we just created to cover multiple warehouses. So I have Business One configured to automatically split purchase orders, and when I create a purchase order in this manner, I will actually get a blanket purchase order with multiple subordinates. So we're looking at purchase order 223, and if I scroll forward, 223-1, that's the items that are allocated and going to warehouse 1. 223-2 is going to warehouse 2, and so forth. So dash 3 is going to warehouse 4. So you can see that this provides some very powerful planning capabilities that make it quick and easy to place your replenishment orders and execute upon them. So everything we've looked at so far has been from a very tactical perspective. Now I'd like to switch and kind of take it to a more strategic view, because you get some very powerful strategic information. And I'm going to sort the inventory investment analysis. I'm going to sort this by difference in value in descending order and go ahead and filter this. And on this view, you get immediate visibility into the current inventory investment. In this database, they've committed to just under $3 million of inventory. Right below that, you can see the ideal investment based off of Valogix approach to optimizing the inventory. So in this example, there's potential to perhaps safely reduce this inventory by over 20%, or almost $650,000. Now, in a real-life environment, you may never get to the ideal inventory because business decisions and requirements may prevent that. And an excellent example of that is trying to fill shipping containers. Many people will often over-purchase knowingly to fill shipping containers, and that makes perfect business sense. But what this view does, it provides immediate visibility to what those business requirements or those business decisions are doing to your optimum inventory investment. So the way I currently have this sorted, it's showing this first item on the list. We've committed to almost $175,000 worth. We need less than $5,000 worth based off the application's analysis. So this first item alone, potential to perhaps safely reduce that investment by $170,000. So this can be a very powerful tool to help businesses gain insight into their business and optimize their inventory levels. So that is a very, very quick overview of the software. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and switch back to the slides, and if I can get this Okay. Go ahead and switch back to the slides and just kind of summarize the value. The chart that is up right now is data that we have been tracking for the 20 years that we've been doing this. And we typically see many of our users within the first year of using this solution are able to reduce their inventory by 20% or more. And while that's very powerful, many of our users will say the time savings alone is maybe worth the investment in the application. And we typically see potential reductions in time between 60 to 80%. So that can be very powerful. We also see significant reductions in stockouts, as well as resulting, the flip side of that is an increase in sales. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch this, turn this over to Beate Casso from Bruder Toys. Beate, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, hi, and thanks for joining, and thanks for, so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Beate.
Okay. So I just want to talk about a couple of the points that are on the slide and also our experience of implementing the software. We started at the beginning of the year with Valogix, and we're extremely happy with it. So the first thing was, just to give you a little bit of a background of our business, we have multiple warehouses. One is in New York and one is in Los Angeles, and our goal is to do just-in-time planning inventory. So we have enough inventory to fulfill all of our orders, but not have too much of it, and to just get it in time so we can receive it and ship it out again. And so it's always presented a challenge to do that with two different warehouses. Also, because we wanted to optimize our shipments to our clients to ship the East Coast clients from the East Coast warehouse and the West Coast clients from our Los Angeles warehouse. That just minimizes the shipping cost, it minimizes the transfer time and everything. It just makes our customers happy, it's better for us and everything. So with Valogix, we were able to do that. Before, we tried to do it on spreadsheets and all these crazy things, but it was simply impossible to do that and very, very time consuming, and we just never succeeded with it. And with Valogix, we're really happy, and it just makes a big difference. It's seamless. I can always see the information, just like you said in your presentation. I can go in every day and double check and make sure that we have the right amount coming and that I don't have to make any adjustments. The next part of it is the sophisticated item management. Valogix dynamically computes and reports on access inventory and gives us increased visibility. That is very important. I kind of touched on that a little bit. It just makes a big difference when we can constantly double check on a daily basis and make adjustments. So when we started it, we just had barely 2 years of history, which we put in, which made a big difference. It really worked right away correctly. I was doubting it at the beginning. How could it work so well? And I kept on checking it, but it really did work great. Let me see. The next part was the enhanced MRP planning. This has been very important to us to prevent over and understocking for each warehouse. It gives us automatic forecasting based on order history and seasonal fluctuation, which is a big aspect of our business. We're in the toy business. Most of our business is happening in the last 4 months of the year. So it could be very slow during the summer month, and then it suddenly picks up. And I do need to have enough inventory to fulfill all the orders just when I need it then. Another thing is that makes it easy with Valogix to do is when we have catalog items. That means if one of our items is featured in a client's catalog, then the demand is very different than maybe what the history shows of that item. I can go in and I can make that adjustment on the forecast or the history if I need to do that. Which is really helpful as well. So I have enough capability to make those little tweaks to make it work. And my last point is really that it's extremely user-friendly. I always I'm afraid of new software and trying to get the grips on it and to be able to do it, but it was really easy to make that implementation and to immediately use it too. It didn't take me long at all. It took us like a couple of days. It was implemented. A lot of the information was already in SAP, so we didn't have to do too much input, but it immediately worked and it was seamless. Then the data synchronization, that's another point that's really good. It's just every night that happens. You don't really notice it, and every day you have the updated information when you get in and open it. I think that's pretty much it from my side, what I remembered now of all of the steps and all of the points.
Tom and Beate, thank you very much, and everybody who's attended today.
Well, thank you, Glennis, and thanks to everybody who has taken time today.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.